When I was 15 years old, I moved to live with my grandfather's family due to my parents' work. It was very exciting for me to look forward to. However, in the beginning days, I found myself very bored in that place without much entertainment. Later, I found a group of children much older than me who also lived in the neighborhood. They became my friends. However, their way of entertainment was different from what I perceived as normal activities. They often drank in secret, and I began to get involved. Some of these kids were no longer students, they were older and had more life experience. With them, I felt I was becoming more mature. I also began to feel some guilt. I knew that this behavior was discouraged and could have a negative impact on my health and schooling. I was always vigilant and cautious. I did not tell my family because I knew they would be concerned and disappointed by this behavior. During that pastime, kids who were older than me would drive me around in search of excitement. This made me feel excited and nervous because I had never experienced anything like it. They often convinced me to engage in risky behaviors, one of which was shoplifting food and booze. They claimed it was an adventurous way to go. Although I felt uneasy at first, with their encouragement, I decided to try it once. Whenever we entered the store, my heart began to beat faster. We pretended to be picking out merchandise, trying not to arouse the store clerk's suspicion. I tried to hide my inner anxiety and also to convince myself that it was just an adventure game. Incredibly, each time we were undetected. This made me start to feel good about myself. On Monday morning, I woke up with my mind still foggy. I felt very physically exhausted. Just then, my grandfather knocked on my door, his voice with a hint of urgency. "What time is it? Don't get up. If you don't get up, you'll be late." Hearing my grandfather's shout, I hurriedly put on my clothes, grabbed my school bag and left the house. As soon as I stepped out of the house, I realized that the bus was already in the station. Seeing that it was about to leave, I desperately tried to speed up my pace, hoping to catch it. However, the bus door was already closed and the bus left the platform. I felt very frustrated. I didn't want my grandfather to drive me to school because I didn't want to face his nagging and scolding eyes. I decided to walk to school, and I started walking slowly along the narrow road. The weather that day was very bad, visibility was very low, and a thick fog filled the area. I was wearing a black dress that seemed to blend in with my surroundings. I walked along the edge of the road for some distance. I did not notice a car approaching behind me. Suddenly, I heard an ear-splitting sound of brakes and instantly, I felt a sharp pain. I fell to the ground after my body was violently hit. The pain was unbearable and I felt my mind was in turmoil. I also heard a scream, but I couldn't be sure if it came from myself or the driver. When I regained consciousness, I appeared in a completely different world. I entered a space of peace and warmth. It was a bliss and peace beyond imagination, and I cannot describe in words how wonderful it was. In this space, I felt an indescribable joy and contentment that surpassed anything I had ever experienced before. I felt at one with everything around me. I also felt an infinite love and compassion that seemed to come from some kind of presence. In this space, time seemed to become irrelevant and I was just purely present, immersed in this beautiful realm. I cannot describe exactly how this experience made me feel because it cannot be described in exact words. Suddenly, a blinding light appeared in front of me. When I looked up, I saw a figure appear in front of me. Jesus stood there quietly. In his gaze, I saw forgiveness and hope. His presence transcended the boundaries of time and space and brought me a strong sense of security. The moment Jesus came closer to me, I felt a powerful energy envelop the entire space. This energy was so full of power and holiness that it left me feeling in awe. I immediately fell to my knees in front of him because I felt so small. He gazed at me with a loving gaze. He did not judge me. Instead, he conveyed to me his love for me. I remembered the story my grandfather once told me about the Bible. He said that God loves each of us, no matter what our past is, no matter what mistakes we have made, and that God's love is unconditional. As Jesus gazed at me, I had a strong feeling as if he could see into my mind and heart. In this moment, pieces of my past life were shown before my eyes like a movie. I saw myself bullying others with my friends. This scene made me feel ashamed and remorseful. I saw myself abusing illegal drugs with my friend. We were seeking fleeting pleasures. This behavior made me feel desperate and remorseful. I also saw what struck me most. In that scene, I was stealing beer from inside the store. I quietly put the merchandise in my pocket, and the clerk was too busy with his own work to notice my actions. Even though I wasn't caught, I saw the impact of my actions. The clerk was a mother of two who was having a hard time making ends meet. She spotted my theft on the security camera, but she did not choose to call the police. She took the loss of the store on her own. Her decision touched me deeply, and I felt her kindness and forgiveness. Jesus did not accuse or judge me. His gaze seemed to tell me that he was willing to give me salvation and a chance to start over. These experiences made me acutely aware of my mistakes and the harm I had caused to others. As Jesus held out his hands to me, I saw the wounds on his hands. I was reminded of the biblical story of him laying down his life to save mankind. After his death, the sins of mankind were forgiven. He opened his hands again and wanted me to embrace him and receive his love and forgiveness. I felt I did not deserve this because I had made so many mistakes. This shame and self-loathing made me afraid to look up at him directly. I bowed my head. Jesus spoke gently, "My child, anyone can make mistakes, and I hope that when I see you again, you have become a good person." His voice was full of comfort and encouragement. I lifted my head and gazed into that loving face. I felt the kindness and care in his eyes. I could no longer refuse his invitation. And my heart was filled with longing. I began to rush into his arms and I felt a surge of strength envelop me. In his embrace, I felt that I had received true forgiveness and redemption. I understood that although I had made mistakes, his love was unconditional. Just as we were embracing, suddenly I heard a surge of electricity. I felt a powerful energy pass through my soul. I longed to be with Jesus, to feel his presence and guidance. However, I found myself unable to open my eyes and see what was around me. This bondage and helplessness deepened my anxiety. I struggled to open my eyes, but I was unable to do so. Despite my inability to see around me, I chose to believe that Jesus was still with me. I felt very confused. Suddenly, I heard the sound of my heart beating, a very clear sound. I felt like I was in an ambulance or a hospital. My body was filled with pain. In this state of pain, my heart kept calling out to Jesus. Time seemed to become a blur, and I did not know how long had passed. I heard a familiar voice, the voice of my grandfather. He was calling out my name. The voice was so kind and warm. When I woke up from my hospital bed, the warm sunlight shone through the window into the room. This familiar glow made me feel very lucky. I was so happy to be back here. In this moment, I understood the preciousness and fragility of life. I realized that this was a fresh start, a chance to redefine my existence. Before I experienced this, my life lacked purpose and meaning. But from that day on, everything changed. Just then, the door slowly opened and my grandfather walked in, and behind him were my parents. "Son, you are finally awake." My grandfather walked to the bedside and he gently held my hand. Tears welled up in the corners of my mother's eyes. "Son, you really scared us." My mother's voice was choked with sobs. She gently stroked my cheek. Later, I successfully entered college and chose law as my major. I wanted to help those who had made mistakes and give them a chance to start over. I understand that this idea may sound a bit naive. But I have been striving to pursue this goal. After going through this, I decided to share my experience of meeting Jesus with those around me. However, I encountered skepticism and mistrust. They told me I was lying, and some even thought I was crazy. I felt frustrated and alone, not knowing who to turn to for support or how to share my experience. As the internet grew, I gradually discovered a fact that surprised me. There were many people who had gone through similar experiences as I had. They too had encounters with Jesus and felt endless love and compassion. This discovery gave me the relief that I had finally found a community that could share and understand me. This experience taught me an important lesson: no matter what, it is never too late to start over. No matter what mistakes we have made, we can all be forgiven and given new opportunities. Jesus has given me new direction and purpose in life. Although I still face questions from the outside world, I am convinced of the authenticity of this experience. I have learned to accept the lack of understanding and doubt of others because I know that this experience is unique to me and only I can truly understand the meaning of it. This experience has inspired me to keep moving forward in my quest for inner peace and growth. I understand that every person's experience and growth path is unique, and my experience became a turning point in my life. I am grateful for this valuable opportunity that has allowed me to re-examine myself and find new meaning and purpose.